Now I think it's your turn.
I'll jump in real quick and just do a quick introduction. Like you said, my name's Kristen Tutera. I'm a senior business analyst with Gideon Taylor. I've been working with Los Rios for almost a year now. We've been going through some projects, and you'll kind of see what we've been working on and some of the things that we've learned along the way. And like Scott mentioned, we're happy to have Kevin Wong here with us from Los Rios. So Kevin, I'll let you take it away.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin Wong. I am the Director of Service Delivery at the Los Rios Community College District. We are located in the Sacramento region, California, and we currently have 4 independently accredited colleges within our district. And so I reside within our district office, and I help coordinate enterprise-wide initiatives and projects, one of which is our eForm transformation project. I've been working with each of our colleges and our district office staff to implement the GT tool and driving adoption in our organization. Just to give you a little bit of background, Los Rios does use Peoplesoft and have been for 20 plus years. We use the campus solutions, financials, and HR modules. And about a year ago is when we migrated to PeopleTools 858. So when we kind of initiate this effort, right, like a lot of people, we needed to transform how we provided services to our students at the start of the pandemic. We can no longer operate using paper forms or even PDF forms that we email from office to office, campus to campus. We need to build some more efficiencies in how we interact with our students. And so our initial iteration of this effort was leveraging a tool that we had, which is the PeopleSoft Forms and Approval Builder, and building some of the student-facing forms using that tool. In 2020 and in 2021, the team was able to deploy about 9 forms that have been used for about a year and a half now. And we really wanted to get our hands on something that we had easy access to, that we can turn around some products relatively quickly so that we can start offering these online services to students. We wanted to take our PDF paper forms and simply convert those into an electronic version that allows for some workflow automation and some approval routing to make sure that they're getting to the right people timely for processing. Next slide. Right, and so as you can see here, where we started, we realized that there were other features that would definitely improve the experience, both from the technical side, our program side, and our student side. And so you can see here some features that we were hoping to gain from another tool that might be better suited for our requirements, right? And so what we did was we went through an analysis, a selection analysis, to identify various tools that are available to us, and we included our business and program stakeholders, our technical stakeholders, to do an analysis of which tool might meet our needs best. And so through that evaluation, we ended up selecting the Gideon Taylor tool.
Yeah, and like we were just showing on that last screen, there were a couple of things that Los Rios had kind of wanted to have implemented that the GTE Forms framework really supports on a configuration level rather than technical, which is what most of the PeopleSoft Forms and Approval Builder is reliant on. So things like initializing field values, updating field values based upon other information that's already given in the form, things like rich text, so you could put in logos. You'll kind of see that throughout some of the demos that we're going to do here of kind of what we've implemented so far. And we still have a long list of things that we still want to do with Los Rios in collaboration with them. So the framework, our GT framework, solves some of these problems kind of right away. And so we've been slowly kind of transforming some of the existing forms into GTE forms.
So it was about, I would say, fall of last year when we finished our selection, did our purchasing, installation of PT, and started planning out, where we would focus our effort with this new product, with the enhanced features that it offers. And so one of our very first goals was to convert our existing forms over from the Peoplesoft tool into Getting Tailored. What we didn't want was a student experience where they had to go to two different locations to find forms for them to fill out. So we definitely prioritized the migration of the initial forms before we wanted to deploy any new forms. In addition to that original initial conversion, we kind of broken up our work into two work streams, right? One, the forms that focused on our students, right? The what we called our campus efforts, and efforts that are more internal operations, mainly our HR. As you can see from some of the examples that we listed here, we leveraged a wide range of needs that our business customers have. And so we had things like a classroom faculty evaluation form that would allow people to our dean to initiate our faculty evaluation process through this online form. One is the employee service agreement, which is essentially an HR hiring form. And so that one was complex, right? As many HR processes are, there are lots of people and steps of interaction. And this one in particular included external participants, people that weren't already existing within our system, right? And so that added some complexity to this particular form. But also with that complexity, also probably provides greater value to our customers, right? To our business partners, in automating processes that today were very manual and email intensive. Some of the other forms that we wanted to focus on included a zero textbook cost form. So at Los Rios, we are prioritizing the use of OER course material, open educational resources to offer free course materials to our students. And so one of the barriers that we have was trying to collect all of the data from our instructors to designate which classes are zero textbook cost, so that we can then expose that information to students to do their planning and find classes that are zero cost to them. And so we created a form that would allow instructors to easily designate the courses themselves versus going through various manual steps and going through middlemen just to get that information into Peoplesoft. So that one was more of a business process improvement initiative that we had. And the last one that we listed here is a request for digital services and devices. So at the beginning of the pandemic, Los Rios wanted to provide these services to students to help bridge that digital divide that existed as more and more people moved to online classes. And so we offered devices to students and also hotspots and internet connection. And so this form, even though it sounds somewhat simple, had a lot of complexity in it because we wanted to leverage all the data that we had in Peoplesoft to automatically validate which students would qualify for these types of services. So there were lots of different rules around financial aid and their enrollment status that we were able to leverage to really simplify the time it takes to let a student know whether or not they qualify and also what they qualify for.
So just to kind of show you, before we dive into our lessons and a few form demos for you, just kind of show you what we've done so far, kind of our road traveled thus far. So as of today, we have 16 forms in production. We've got another 7 efforts that are really close to going into production. And then as you can see down here in the bottom right, there's over 85 forms that Los Rios already has on a spreadsheet of here's what we would eventually like to make into eForms. So definitely a lot of potential there that we're really excited about, kind of transforming that business process and making them, a nice little eForms hub to have everyone be able to just go to a single place to get access to forms. So a lot of student-facing forms are live right now. We have a handful of some like HR focused stuff in production, but definitely looking forward to even more forms now that we've learned some really good lessons. So.
Okay, so today, I'm really happy to be here to kind of talk you through our process and our evolution from when we initially started deploying forms in GT versus now. We definitely evolved and learned a lot through this last year, and to the extent where I can share our experience so that you don't have to repeat some of these, I wouldn't say mistakes, but some of these hurdles that we have to go over. Happy to share this information with you. And so one of the first things that we wanted to highlight was identifying the right people and committing the right level of resources. So GT is a great tool that provides lots of integration with Peoplesoft and ability to interact with the data that exists in Peoplesoft and automate a lot of the forms to again streamline our business processes. And with that level of benefits that the tool brings also requires a level of commitment of resources to work through the process appropriately. It's not necessarily, I would say, a light touch tool, but there comes with it lots of great benefits of that integration that if you invest the right resources in it, right, I think that will help you realize those benefits a lot sooner versus kind of keeping it as a side gig, right? There needs to be an investment in eForms as more of a program and service in your organization versus something that is kind of one-off, kind of an ancillary effort. Development of eForms will take time, right? We treat each form as its own mini project, meaning we go through a requirements analysis to understand what it is our business partners want in this form, to understand the workflows that are needed and the characteristics and behaviors of that form based off of information the student inputs. We go through the build cycle, we do user acceptance testing, we do training, we do communications. And so it really requires appropriate commitment of resources to do all that successfully, because we're not just trying to convert a paper form into an online form, right? There's lots of other business process automation that goes with it to really drive the true value of the form, right? It's not just creating a widget that wants a piece of paper and putting it into a website, right? There's definitely a lot more behind that to again drive the benefits, increase efficiencies. And it's always important to have a right team in place to prioritize what it is that you want to work on. You want a very kind of clear and directed set of priorities and goals that the team is working towards, right? And so we have, like I was saying before, we have our HR work stream, our campus work stream, and we have governance groups that are involved in both of those functional areas to help us define what it is that we should be working on and making sure that we have all the right users involved in that process.
Yeah, so along with that, kind of identifying those stakeholders early on is something that we've definitely learned kind of the hard way of when we don't get that engagement. And like Kevin was saying, that time commitment up front from those stakeholders, we've found that some of our timelines have kind of slowed down, or we've hit a stall when we've finished development and we're waiting for testing and other feedback. So we've really figured out kind of we need to make sure we identify everybody up front, make sure everybody is engaged early on. So that way none of this kind of comes up as a surprise, as like a last minute thing of, hey, by the way, we're going to just release something, in a week or so. So kind of getting that commitment up front has been really helpful to us. Also, with Los Rios being 4 distinct colleges, getting that buy-in from every campus is something that we've really had to focus on as well. It's really easy to kind of just go with the loudest campus or, the loudest voice in the room kind of getting their way. But we really have to try to make sure we're considering everybody and how it's going to impact each individual college. Now, that's not to say we haven't really pushed to standardize things between all 4 campuses, but I'm sure most of you are aware of it too. That process kind of takes time and a lot of other conversations that need to kind of happen. So we've been trying to manage that and really making sure that we have everybody on board as we continue to move forward with it, so that way we don't kind of stall out. And then the other thing that was already existing at Los Rios that was really cool to tap into, Kevin leads a student design team, like work group. So as we were doing some of the student designs, it was really beneficial to actually show the forms and have actual students kind of run through them, try to use them, make sure that everything is working as it should, instructions kind of make sense. I think a lot of the times, those of us who support not only campuses, but HR or even finance, we tend to try to anticipate what people are going to want or need out of forms, and having that kind of direct user feedback is really beneficial, especially since they already had that structure there and it wasn't like trying to create kind of a pilot program or anything from, ground zero. So that kind of thing is really helpful. You can only anticipate so much. That having that real student kind of buy-in, or anytime you can get a real user buy-in, is really beneficial. So we definitely learned we want to engage them as often as we can, since they give us really good feedback.
So kind of expanding on having the right people, our internal IT team definitely evolved from when we started to where we are today. Initially we staffed it with our own internal IT staff that were going through the training process to learn the GT framework. They had the Peoplesoft experience, but not necessarily the GT experience. And so initially, we didn't have dedicated people working on building out GT forms. It was kind of, again, like I was saying before, like a side gig where, as time allowed, that they would casually kind of take on a new form and try to build out a form. We found that didn't work very well for us, right? Because we didn't get the level of commitment needed to progress the form through the process. We were always derailed by other higher priorities that they were working on, or incidents that were coming in that they had to divert their focus on. And so because we couldn't keep a regular cadence internally with development, but also engagement with our users, that created maybe some hurdles that stretched out the process longer than it needed to be, right? And so once we realized that wasn't sustainable, we engaged GT to have a more prominent role in our development efforts. And that's when we engaged Kristen and her team to come in and augment our team, because we didn't want to be completely excluded from the process, but we also acknowledged that we didn't necessarily have the resources to dedicate to it, right? And so we have our Los Rios IT people participating at those pertinent points, but in terms of design and development and user engagement, GT really supports us in those areas. Another thing that we've talked about just in this last slide is making sure that we have the right business stakeholders as well, right? And so we make sure that we engage the people who are doing the work today, making sure that they're allocating the right amount of time as well, because we do want to engage them throughout this entire process and get their buy-in. This may not be indicative of every institution, but particularly at Los Rios, we have tight staffing, right? Meaning that, our ability to tap people quickly has always created some additional barriers to moving quickly on these forms. And so we have to plan well in advance and let people know what the workload is and what the commitment is needed from them so that they can plan that out. Otherwise, we're going through these scheduling cycles that put several weeks in between meetings in order to move a form forward.